first, I'd like to introduce you to 3 people who made this event possible. Without these 3 people, we would not even be able to know who our winners would be. And so I'd like to introduce this year's DevPortal Awards jury. A big welcome to you, Emmelyn Wang, Ellis Pratt, and Bob Watson. So Emmelyn Wang is the Global Business Development Leader for AWS Marketplace. Ellis Pratt is Director of Cherryleaf. And Bob Watson is a Senior Technical Writer at Amazon Web Services. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
So, a moment.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been so much fun to collaborate and contribute with everyone.
So we're going to start off today. Thank you. We're going to start off today with some questions. I wanted to thank all 3 of you for judging all 32 Developer Portal nominations, and this is over 9 categories. This is no small task. And I have a few questions to ask for you, and I have a colleague in the background who's going to be keeping time. So if we can start our 10 minutes, and then we'll get going. So I'll start with Ellis. You reviewed the best accessible dev portal and best community outreach categories. So for the award for a category for best accessible dev portal, what advice would you give future nominees to excel in these areas? For example, what do you think a developer portal should have by default? And is there a bar?
Thank you. All of the entries are very good. And in fact, I think for most developer websites, most people have got this side of things sorted pretty well. From a bar perspective, I would say check your website in a web accessibility tool like Wave, check it for errors, for alt text, contrast errors. Other things I did when looking at the entrance was it mobile friendly? If you resized it, would it work? If you were only using a keyboard, could you use it that way? Was there a clear learning path? And to excel, there wasn't to be that little bit extra. I guess the winner which we'll discover, you got the impression that they started with accessibility from the beginning when they were designing the whole site. And that showed through. In the future, one piece of advice I'd say is have a look at the Designing for Accessibility posters that the Government Digital Service in the UK and the Home Office did. They've done some different posters for things like low vision, people who are deaf and hard of hearing, dyslexia and motor disabilities, and also people who are autistic and people who might be anxious. And I think in the future, we'll need to consider anxiety from people and unnecessarily stressing people out by pop-ups or creating time limits or limited situations when those limits are false. So keeping it clear and simple for those extra range of disabilities over and above the ones which we normally think about, like sight and hearing.
I feel like a lot of us, like a lot of people who even don't have the disabilities would benefit from many of these features that you're mentioning, because I, for one, am very frustrated sometimes.
Well, especially this year, I think in terms of anxiety, everybody's, that's gone up a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. For the award category of Best Community Outreach, what was the most impressive feature or solution that you witnessed?
Well, again, there was a huge amount of effort that went into these, and the way I ranked the scores was on a score of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best. And lots of the entrants were at 4s and 5s. There was a great deal there. And we were looking at, well, the guidance we got from Pronovix was to consider blogs, events, community pages, links to third-party communities and forums. And again, in terms of the organisation that's won, again, they really considered community from the beginning. There were it was something that was very easy to get to. There were links to things like Stack Overflow. They had a large community, and they spent a lot of time in the navigation and categorizing information, putting popular topics that people might ask towards the top to help sort of the wayfinding things. And it was a very clear and clean layout that they provided. So I think I would say that, again, it was that rather than, oh, we need a community, let's create a blog, let's create, add a link to a forum. It was think about as a user journey or developer journey, and think, okay, from the start, how can we integrate community in that side of things?
Thank you. Yeah, that's it sounds like for next year it's going to be an even tougher category to assess, because if everyone's already ranking at 4s and 5s, what I know we didn't plan this question, but what do you think the future might hold?
Well, we talking about this when we had a get together as judges, and one of the challenges we all faced was there were some very large organizations that had large install base for community, lots of APIs, and had a challenge of managing complexity. And then you had startups which were starting with maybe one API, a clean sheet, a small user base. And I think one thing we were talking about was how you judge the small with the big, and perhaps for next year, maybe split it between the small and big, and give and recognize both groups and the different challenges that they face.
Wow. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the maturity model a bit later with Christoph. So I'm going to skip over to Emmelyn. You reviewed nominations for the Best API Business Model, Best Design, and Best Developer Dashboard categories. So what category was the most challenging for you, and why?
Sure. So for me, the most challenging category was Developer Dashboard, and I'll explain why. What's very interesting today is, right, there's the low and no code sort of platform and approach where because of the shortage of very talented technical talent and developers, companies are asking for users to contribute to app development. And so with developer dashboards, what was very interesting about judging that category was it depends on the type of developer that you're reaching. So some developers want to be able to customize and roll their own, for example, metrics dashboard, whereas other developer portals have a UI where you can quickly see metrics for the app or the APIs that you're either building and or consuming. And so it took a lot of basically objective frameworks. And so one of the ones I used was the friction logging framework. And basically you want to log in and see how much time does it take to get to your first API call. And what was interesting is some of the APIs had either a spec or perhaps a Postman collection or a Swagger hub where you would be able to have the machine ready piece of it, whereas other ones offered SDKs or recommended that you use your own IDE to be able to consume the APIs in that developer portal. And so I really wanted to weight that very properly, in the sense that you may have some developers that have certain preferences, and it's really having the empathy and anticipating how the developer would want to use that particular developer portal and its features. So I didn't want to take away points if they didn't have a metrics UI, versus on the other end where you had to build your own. However, it was very robust and easy to sort of launch metrics the way that you would want to see it, the way that your organization wants to see it, as well as adding it and making it a part of your own technology stack.
That sounds incredibly challenging. It's again, it comes right back to that maturity model of where is your company at, and who are you directing your audience to, and how are you trying to provide this technology from your business alignment. So that's incredible. I'm going to go to the next question. Was there a feature or functionality that you felt all dev portals should have by default?
Yes. So I thought it was very interesting that some dev portals will section off their personas. So they'll say, okay, this is for the business user, this is for the architect and the developers. And so one of the things that I recommend is, this is a book that is vendor agnostic, and basically it talks about the API economy. And so to me, all of the portals, you want to have empathy for the stakeholders that you're trying to reach. I'll give you an example. So developers and architects and product leaders, they have to be able to justify their time to senior leadership. And so what I recommend for the portals is that you really offer information for each persona that is a first-class citizen. And so we'll actually, as judges, talk about what that means and anticipating what the user is looking for to help them make the justification so that they can spend time on the technology that's offered in your portal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe can you hold up the book again, and maybe we can copy that to the chat? So it's API Economy 101, Changes Your Business.
Thank you so much, Ellis. It's translated in many languages too, since I know we have a global audience.
Awesome. Finally, Bob. So you reviewed the best onboarding, best API reference documentation and support, and the best DX innovation categories. What key aspects did you take into account when reviewing your categories?
Yes, so I used the same approach, but obviously with different sort of areas of focus for each category. And as a API consumer and documentation producer, I'm most interested in, does it help you get the job done? And each category kind of changes the focus of job, but the same approach. It's a usability centered approach to, is this working for me as a consumer to do what I'm looking to do on your website? And so, in each category, I picked different ways to look at that, but it all boiled down to, does your site help me make a decision to use it, to fix it if I'm using it already? Does it meet me on my customer journey?
So, Bob, you're actually a returning juror because you were in the jury last year as well. Did you see a shift in the caliber of these the developer portals that were nominated from last year to this year?
Oh yeah, they just keep getting better and better, and we're going to have to move the scale up to 11, I think, for the next years, because the 1 to 5 or even 1 to 10 isn't going to cover it, and that's a good thing. It's good to see. And I hope these, events like this, keep bringing this into focus. It's, that, what's good today becomes normal tomorrow. And so good becomes, you have to reach even higher. Mm-hmm. And, between last year and this year, I've seen that happening. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to next year just to see what people have come up with.
That means you're already volunteering for next year. So that's awesome. Uh-oh. Thank you. We're taking notes in the background.
No, I really enjoy this because it's always great to see how people are how different organizations are making it better.
Mm-hmm. Would you say there is a standard or bar that needs to be met with regards to best onboarding?
Yeah, well, it's like there are definitely things that you need to make the onboarding experience, easy for your potential consumer. The one thing that I saw a couple had missed, and it is just the value proposition. It should be clear on your site. What's it going to do for you? It's easy to forget that when you're all caught up in all the details, but remember the person coming to your site, hasn't seen it at all. And so if you can't express what you can do for them, in 5 words or less, something that's instantly recognizable, you've made it harder for them right out of the gate. On some sites, I looked and I couldn't find it. It's like, if you just put 5 words on your website, it would have changed, the whole experience. And it's important not to lose focus of that.
Mm-hmm. Do any of the three of you have any further comments that you'd like to add, like in terms of the feedback from the experience? And I see that you're already typing these into the chat, but if you want to vocalize them as well, please go ahead.
Sure, I'd like to start. So I completely agree with everything that Ellis and Bob are saying. And what's really fascinating is not starting with the solution. So not starting with the API or the dev portal, but starting with, from what is the key problem that we're trying to solve, starting with that first. I think that was really important. And Bob and I had a lot of fun because he was talking about the dev portal consumer and saying, well, how much do we want to give to entice someone to decide whether to invest further time or resources? And then I was coming at it at the angle of, however, I'm, say, the product manager or, the leader that's responsible for the success of the dev portal. My concerns also need to be met, meaning if someone doesn't register or sign up, can we nurture that relationship? And then we also talked about the fact that, but if they aren't invested, say we're a small company, we also have to be careful of the resources that we use to support people that are kind of just looking around. And so I saw several dev portals actually address that, right? So balancing kind of Ellis's idea of anxiety. When you sign up, some portals were very good at knowing what questions to ask, to say, hey, let's ask you just 4 simple questions to understand what to serve you when. Right? So do you want much interaction with us, or do you want us to kind of hold back so you can discover more? And so to me, this was all very interesting because I think more and more, all the folks on this call and all the nominees, you're getting better at serving, who you're trying to reach, as well as making it easier for the people who are creating the dev portals and have to have success with them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. If I pick up on that, there was some sites where they assumed that the reader knew what they wanted, and then there were others which provided, I guess, at a glance, a benefit or an answer to the question why. Why should I look at this bit, or why should I use this API? And again, in the meeting we had to talk about who would be the winner, Emmelyn talked about using friction as a way of judging a site, and how much friction was there in the process of signing up or using it. And some sites had more friction than others, and that was another way of sort of judging it.
Yeah, just pick up with in our chat with Emmelyn and I talking about this the other day, and using, in some of the sites, and I've seen this in lots of sites, where the site's a lead generator, where they want you to come to the site and sign up to get hooked up into their sales funnel. And I look at it from a little bit different perspective, as more of a lead filter. Whereas if you make your site, productive, so that I, as the potential consumer, can explore it, and your site explains to me what it can do for me, and then I can be engaged and start exploring and say, yeah, this is going to work. Then when I contact you, it's a much higher quality lead. You filtered out, the tire kickers and all that, and you've got someone who's really ready to engage, as opposed to having to go through the, the 10 or 50 to 1 of potentials to find the one who's actually there. So this actually works for, the sales team trying to find people, the actual customers, and for the consumers to find the actual solutions to their products by having a high quality onboarding experience and a good developer portal.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to wind up now as we've run out of time. But thank you, all 3 of you, and I hope to see you again next year, perhaps. And thank you.